attendance. We are so excited to hear our fantastic panel share their insights on this morning's topic of navigating a cancer diagnosis in the workplace. We are so thankful to have these great community leaders here today sharing their insights, answering some questions, and some of the questions were even submitted by people in advance, so thank you to those of you that did that. To get started, first let me do a couple housekeeping things. The food and drink is going to be out all morning, so please help, all morning, right, Jessica?
Yes.
Yeah. So please help yourself. Don't worry about getting up and down. We want you to eat. And then restrooms are out one of these doors, and you'll go left, and then you'll see a hallway. They'll be on the right.
Correct.
And then you do also have a survey on each of your seats. It's the very last paper, I believe. So if you wouldn't mind taking some time, maybe at the end, to fill that out, that would be fabulous. So to get started, I am going to introduce our moderator, Sami Mansfield. Sami is the founder of Cancer Wellness for Life, which is an organization focused on developing oncology wellness and exercise resources for hospital and healthcare organizations, nonprofits, and individuals affected by cancer. She was one of the first cancer exercise specialists in the United States and continues to be a leader in this industry as a consultant and speaker. Sami is also the director of oncology wellness for the Sarah Cannon Cancer Institute at HCA Midwest Health. Here she provides consulting services for program development and growth of this pilot program for one of the largest cancer programs in the United States. In 2016, she helped build the first functional fitness exercise program for cancer survivors, which has its roots here in Kansas City. After the success of this program outgrew the space it was in, Sami and her husband Jerry opened up the We Build for Life Wellness and Fitness Center in Lenexa in January 2019. Sami sees firsthand the importance of exercise to reduce the side effects, maintain strength, and the ability to withstand and recover from aggressive treatments and surgeries. She is known to be very passionate about the importance of exercise and even motivates her clinical staff to be more active and take care of themselves. We know she's going to do a fantastic job navigating our panel this morning and keeping our conversation engaging. So I would like to welcome her and thank her for being here.
Thank you.
Everybody hear me okay? So what the panel doesn't know is they're going to each demonstrate an exercise. Just kidding, it's part of it. I'm joking, sort of. I was telling Cindy earlier that every time I speak, I make everybody move. And she's like, I think that's a great idea. No, we'll see how it goes. So if you're engaging, I'll be nice. But if not, I make people move because it is early. But thank you for being here this morning. I'm really excited to be part of this. As Alex said, I work in the oncology space as an exercise specialist. And honestly, a lot of times, getting people back to work is a really important role that we have in wellness and exercise. Although it may not seem like a direct connection, it is one very integral piece. So we're really excited to be here, excited to provide some amazing information and topics. And I really want to spend some time introducing our speakers and their background, and then you'll get a chance to hear from them. So Monty Miller is a licensed specialist clinical social worker with over 28 years of experience working with families and couples. And he must be really good at it because that's a long time. Yes, a lot of people you've helped, thank you. He earned a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's in social welfare, and a certification as a life coach, which is a great addition. He has a passion to coach dedicated men and women to discover their significance and purpose, and strives to help people live to their full potential and to live a life of authenticity. He has a passion for health and nutrition, partnering with others on their health journey. So we're all working together for big reasons. He strives to be an effective leader and empower people to discover their passion and full potential. He's committed to partnering with patients and families in their cancer journey and helping people discover meaning. Monty currently serves as the manager of supportive services for St. Luke's Health System Cancer Institute. Thank you. Cindy Foster is currently the digital tax project manager for H&R Block. Very analytical, yes.
Yeah.
Woo. Gotta keep an eye on Monty, that's all good. In June of 2011, Cindy was diagnosed with stage 3C breast cancer. From June 13th to June 27th, her one tumor multiplied in size and also developed a new tumor. Cindy went through a radical right mastectomy, 6 rounds of chemo, along with radiation and tamoxifen. In 2015, she began her volunteering work for the American Cancer Society. She continues to be an extremely active volunteer, Her list of volunteer activities will be here for a long time, so you have to talk to her about those, but I want to highlight a couple that are really important. She's very involved with making strides against breast cancer, as a political lobbyist, Relay for Life, and in 2019, she's a City Year Idealist of the Year sponsor for the H&R Block for the American Cancer Society for volunteering, so yes. Thank you for being here. Todd Hlasney, got that right? Good. Leads the development and implementation of health risk management and claims cost containment strategies and provides leadership to the Lockton Health Risk Solutions team as they collaborate to identify and implement best practices. I assure you he'll explain more. Yes. Additionally, Todd partners with client leaders and Lockton account teams to establish the cultural, financial, and operational framework needed for outcomes-based wellness strategies. Subsequently, he establishes metrics and designs operational plans that align with each client's overall business strategy. Todd also provides assistance evaluating plan effectiveness and provides guidance to further enhance outcomes. Todd has earned his Bachelor's of Science in Kinesiology as well as a Bachelor of Science in Food and Nutrition, both from K-State. Cindy, you're surrounded by all the wellness people. Yes. So today we're going to definitely get started talking about cancer in the workplace. I made a little script change, thank you Alex, last night. And you know, it was interesting when we think about all of the people affected with cancer in our workplace. I was like, who's the big influential person who doesn't want to be an influential person? How many of you know Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Who she is? I adore her so much that I have a 7-month-old doodle named Ruth Ginsburg. She has her own Instagram. She's a service dog. She's not fully trained. I would have brought her, but I would have been scurrying around after her in her vest. So yes, I would not bring her today, but next time we can probably bring her. She'll hopefully behave. But it's important to know, so think about this, 7 million out of the 15 million cancer survivors in the United States are actually still working due to a variety of reasons. Requirement for insurance, financial requirements to suffice for their expenses, etc. And honestly, that number really is staggering. It's affecting all of us every single day. Like I said, the example is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. How many of you know she's a 3-time cancer survivor? So diagnosed in 1999 with colon cancer. She in 2009 diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Fortunately for her, it was surgery only. It was a very early stage. And then again, in the end of 2018, she fell, broke her rib, and they found out she had lung cancer. And according to, she only missed work in this last experience related to her cancer. I also think it was important to know that, and I found this on Wikipedia, by the way, that I thought, I love this. Because she reported to be physically weakened by the cancer treatment, she began working with a personal trainer. Since 1999, Bryant Johnson, a former Army reservist attached to the Special Forces, has trained Ginsburg twice a week in the justice-only gym at the Supreme Court. In spite of her small stature, Ginsburg saw her physical fitness improve, and she was able to complete 20 push-ups. There is actually a video, by the way, in a session, one session. How many of you can do 20 push-ups? No. Right? You have people like modified. Yes, good job. Monty, demo? Just kidding. This is before her 80th birthday. And my favorite quote personally of Ruth Ginsburg is this: fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that you will lead others to join you. And that's what we're doing here today. All right, so we're gonna get started with some really exciting rapid fire questions. Are you ready? All right. Monty, are you a night owl or early bird?
I'm currently an early bird. I used to be kind of an early bird and a night owl, but the older I get, I'm an early bird.
That whole sleep thing?
Yes.
Cindy, pass along. Cindy, what is your favorite song?
Oh, you want my favorite song?
Yeah.
Sunflower by Post Malone.
Oh. Nice. Yes. Todd, favorite emoji? Ha! The suit is so deceiving. Nope, I'm gonna stick with you. Cindy.
We're over here.
I'm gonna change it. Name one way you practice personal well-being in the workplace.
I drink a lot of water at work and I don't drink it at home. So, I also get up and walk a lot. I have a lot of arthritis and things, so I can't do a lot of the things everyone else does, but I can walk.
Awesome.
So that's what I do.
All right, Monty. Ooh, here we go. Favorite song?
Favorite song? Well, I really can't think of a favorite song.
Oh, Monty.
I know I like the Beatles, but I also like a lot of classical music, so I like kind of music without words. if that makes sense. So I find that relaxing for me, so that's what I like.
All right, Todd. Best piece of advice you were ever given as a teenager?
Oh.
As a teenager.
Freaking
that's
you out.
That's a new.
I know, you're twisting it. Yep.
No, I'm not saying I ever followed this, but nothing good happens after midnight.
I'm telling you.
That's true.
All right, Cindy, how about this? What's your favorite nighttime snack?
Cheese.
I love it.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I love cheese. Monty,
Yes.
favorite workout? Favorite exercise?
Race walking.
Nice. With short legs, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Awesome. All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. So we're going to go through the panelists and give them an opportunity to kind of answer some individual questions that they have somewhat prepared for. They have not prepared with me, so you just never know. But before we do that, I'd like to kind of get to know the audience a little better, which helps us guide our conversation. So if you can kind of go by a quick show of hands, raise your hand if you're here as a health and wellness professional that works with employees. Okay, awesome. It's a lot of you. Raise your hand if you're here just for personal interest. Little pocket right here, okay? Anybody here, also, if you're okay saying a cancer survivor, or about an immediate person next to you with cancer? So interestingly, that's a smaller number than I would expect, so kudos to all of you for going outside the box as well. Excellent, thank you so much. All right, here we go. Miss Cindy, were you comfortable starting as our survivor? Excellent. So Cindy, for you as a survivor and a working professional, what were some of the immediate questions and comments that you received when you were first diagnosed?
From coworkers?
Yes, how about from coworkers?
There's two kinds of coworkers. There's the kinds in your circle, and then there's people you just know by affiliation. The people in my circle brought food. They didn't ask. They just brought and brought and brought, and so that was awesome. People that didn't know me had a little bit more of a not sure how to approach me. So the first Making Strides walk I did, and my head was bald at that point. I went around the organization, and in order to make everyone comfortable with me being bald, they paid $20 each to sign my head, which kind of, made it more humorous for me and everyone else. And I raised $1,000 for the American Cancer Society by doing that. So that was a fun thing to do, and my coworkers all got involved in that.
Do you have any tips on advice on like what coworkers said or couldn't say to make it more comfortable, like communication strategies when there's a new diagnosis in a workplace? Because it may be even for people that are close, but most importantly, the people that are maybe not close with you.
Yeah, it was a hands. Nobody really wants to talk to the person with cancer. HR was a valuable tool to me for many reasons, and I think we'll go into that in a little while. But yeah, I mean, most people, at least I went through this in 2011. Unless they're very close to you, they really do not know what to do, so they kind of keep a distance, and that's not necessarily the right thing to do, but that's natural.
Thank you so much. All right, Monty, can I go next to you, please? In your experience, what are some of the most common questions that come up during a cancer diagnosis and navigating the workplace? Things that you see in providing social support services?
Well, I think the common questions I get from clients or patients, employees who have cancer is, do I have to tell my coworkers that I have cancer? Do I have to tell my boss I have cancer? What do I say when people ask if something's wrong with me? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to be penalized? Is this going to look negative on my record? Am I going to lose time at work? I mean, they get really nervous about those things. And that's when we lead them to the HR policies and procedures or the intermittent FMLA information and policy and procedures. We also do some scripting with them as to what they can say to people. And they don't have to tell their coworkers. They don't have to tell their boss everything. They don't have to, they can tell people, it's really a personal issue and I don't want to talk about it. And we try to empower them with things to say, because if you're not ready, sometimes you say things on the spur of the moment in reactivity, and then you're kind of sorry you said that. So we really try to prepare them for those things because they're really, really nervous. Also, a lot of times patients may not look like they are sick, and coworkers and bosses and everybody expect same behavior and same activity level when they really are sick and they just can't. And so sometimes they don't want to be bald or look sick, but they want people to understand that they are sick. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have patients who go, I wish people understood I can't perform like I used to, but they can't see it. And then others are like, gosh, I wish they didn't treat me like I was sick, because they can see that I'm bald, or they can see that I don't feel well. It's a combination of things.
Do you find that is also the experience when people are, going through the survivorship side? They're done with treatment, they look normal,
Yes.
but again, they don't feel normal.
Correct, right. And I think everybody around you, and especially your family, just wants you to hurry up and get over it. And once you look like you used to, then good, everything's great, everything's back to normal. And it's not. And people expect that kind of behavior. It's too much expectation of that person. And so it's very difficult. The other thing, kind of going back to what Cindy was saying, is that I really think what I experience with patients is that there's a lot of isolation because people really don't want to hear about it. People do kind of push away because it scares them. Because it could happen to them. And they don't want to think about it. And when they're standing in front of a bald person because they're going through chemo, it just reminds them it could happen to them or their loved ones. And there is some push. I'm telling you, there's really some pushing away from. And the patient feels that. And so I have to admit, I'm not proud of it, but when my children were little and parents would talk about losing a child, I got away from them kind of because I didn't like to hear about that because it scared me. Because you never want to think about losing your children, right? And so I kind of skirted away from those people because it reminded me of my fear of losing my children when they were young. And that's not okay to do to people, but I think we automatically do that. So be aware that that's your issue. But we really hurt other people in the process.
Awesome. Great, thank you so much. All right, Todd. All right, Todd.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the medical and pharmacy benefits that your organization has offered, that you've used, or that you've heard of as best practice on that side of things?
I'm in a very unique situation that I'm a healthcare consumer, right? I'm part of Lockton's benefits plan. I also function as an internal consultant to Lockton, so our organization is consumers. And then I have a lot of clients that I work with as well and lead our team to serve over 180 clients. So I think my experience is a little bit unique in that I kind of get to deal with multiple aspects of the healthcare delivery system. But there's a lot of things that we do at Lockton and a lot of things that we're recommending to our clients. Probably one that's been the most successful recently that's associated with cancer is second opinion services. That cancer is obviously a very complex situation to be in, both from a physical and mental health, behavioral health perspective. Being able to have second opinion services in to first diagnose or to evaluate whether or not your diagnosis is correct. I think most people would be shocked at the number of times that there are false positives, that people get into an early panic stage. So being able to have a second opinion group really help you make sure that first your diagnosis is correct, second that the care plan that's being delivered to you is appropriate based off of what you've been diagnosed with, to evaluate whether or not that treating physician has been clinically trained in that specific area, and then lastly that facility where you're getting your care, is it of the highest quality? So that's something that we've recently implemented at Lockton that is serving us very well, and we are encouraging a lot of our clients to take advantage of it as well. And it's on a voluntary basis.
So do you have any guidance for the panel about how they can communicate if they don't have access to, say, Lockton, but I'm in the community, a friend is diagnosed? Can you maybe provide some guidance on best practices that you've learned of, like, the communication strategies around getting a second opinion? Because I don't know about you guys, but it's interesting when something like this happens, everybody's going to tell you about somebody else's experience, and it may not be the same. Like, as an example, Cindy sitting on our panel went through breast cancer. There's a lot of different types of breast cancer and a lot of different treatment trajectories. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some guidance and communication around that?
Yeah, I think that some level of those services are available through your carrier, right? So whether you're with Blue Cross of Kansas City or United Healthcare, they will have very similar services. They may not be quite as robust as hiring a third party, but being able to reach out to those advocates or those case managers to get more details about what they're currently experiencing and some of the other options. Again, a lot of groups will have centers of excellence that are built part of their plan, being able to tap into that, to go to their website to find out where these centers of excellence are located, and if it makes sense for them to take advantage of those services. It's something that I would encourage most people to do.
Should people be worried about insurance coverage? You know, I went to one doctor and I'm going to another doctor for a second opinion. Should they be concerned that insurance is likely to cover or not cover that type of a visit?
No, most organizations would prefer, because of the cost associated with that, that everything is validated. Within the second opinion community early on, I was a bit skeptical. I didn't think the physicians would really want to do that. I know enough physicians personally and professionally that sometimes their egos are very high, which is good. They do a great job, but sometimes their egos can get in the way.
Confidence.
And very confident, yeah. But what we found is that with the costs associated with malpractice, that having the foremost expert in the country validate the diagnosis and the care plan that they're providing, should something go wrong, you at least have that as a backup. And to the contrary, you know, if you don't follow that care plan and something goes wrong, then you're going to be held accountable to that. So we see it as being a really good accountability tool, and most physicians at this point in time are getting in line with that. Again, things are becoming so complex, and there's so much data. Why wouldn't you want to take advantage of all those other resources if you truly have the patient's best interest at hand?
Right. Great. Thank you.
Good.
Cindy? And I want to add a little bit on Todd's, and if you want to start with one quick thing. You know, I think that it's important to know, like, there's also in connection with your care team as a patient to physician or group, that they're the people that are saving your life and taking care of your life. And I tell people, like, you should like your doctor or their nursing staff. Some people go, like, you know, I don't know, my doctor seems smart, but they don't listen to my questions. I'm like, that's a problem. I mean, it truly is. So sometimes second opinion is more than clinical. Sometimes second opinion is also feeling you're finding the right team. And again, I mean, we are intuition. It should be relational. And that's, I think, is important. Would you agree to that? Before, as we, okay.
I agree.
As we're passing on to Cindy, thank you. So Cindy, can you tell us a little bit more about your employer and your insurance provider, how they helped you understand your benefits when you were diagnosed?
Well, I'm very blessed. My husband works at Ford, so our medical insurance is paid. I knew that there would be no cost. We just had to pre-certify, so I'm one of the very lucky ones on that front. As far as the benefits where I work, I was at Farmland Foods when I got cancer, and the HR department was wonderful in helping me understand and navigate that I could be on short-term disability on the days where I could not go to work because of chemo or Neulasta or whatever was going on. And then usually there was a whole week I could work. So they let me balance that to where the short-term would just kick in again on the days where I couldn't be there, and then full-time pay when I could be there. And that was, I don't know that that's normal. That was a blessing to me because that helped me get back to normal, keep my income going, be off when I needed to be off. And you know, between chemo and then radiation every day for 6 weeks, they were very understanding.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a great experience.
So your advice is definitely talk to your HR department.
Absolutely. They may have a solution that you don't even think they have.
Absolutely.
Right.
So Todd, can I go back to you for a second, and then corner Marty on a couple questions. Can you talk about like the type of resources that are available to Lockton's employees to help them understand these types of benefits a little bit more on the front lines, and how is that communicated also to the general population outside of Lockton?
Yeah, so we try to use as many different communication methods as possible. We receive great mailers at home quite frequently. We have a very robust website so that people can go. You can always go. We happen to partner with United Healthcare, so there's a lot of resources there. We have an app now, which we've loaded with all of our employee benefits information, not just health plan type of information, but leave policy information, short-term disability, all of that's on an app. So a lot of Lockton associates travel quite frequently, so to be able to have that in an app that's readily available is really important. We do a lot of text messaging now, secure text messaging as well. That's definitely becoming much more prevalent. I would think that we still have some opportunities to tighten that up a little bit. I would say we've gone more with the shotgun approach, just given the diversity of our population, everybody that we're trying to serve. And I think that that's an area that we continuously want to focus on, that we have a lot of great resources. And we want to make sure that all of our associates are aware of those resources at the right place at the right time. And I think that there's still some opportunities to tighten that up, but overall, I think we do a pretty decent job.
Excellent. I love hearing all the different types of ways to get information. Everyone's like, send an email. I'm like, how many of you get a lot of emails? Yeah.
Just
This is not personal, Alex. I loved your emails, by the way.
Oh.
Just so you know. All right, Monty, are you ready? So can you talk about how your organization provides holistic wellness support around multiple areas, emotional, financial, family needs, and giving some examples of how you see those work firsthand?
Yes, in our organization, a lot of our employees, of course, have healthcare insurance through St. Luke's, and so they come to St. Luke's a lot of times for services, and they may come to our Cancer Institute. So we have a lot of services that we offer through the Cancer Institute, through the SOARS program, which is what we call it, which is what I manage in our department, the Cancer Institute, which is supportive oncology rehabilitation services. And we offer a lot of services for them, for the cancer patient as well as their family members. So we offer massage therapy. They get 6 free sessions for massage. They get, and so does their caregiver, their partners or whoever their primary caregiver is. Within a 1-year period, they get 6 free massages. They get yoga sessions. They get reflexology. We do refer to a primary, very excellent PhD Chinese medicine outpatient providers in the community for acupuncture and all kinds of cupping, different things that they do that help them be able to work better through their treatment process in chemotherapy and stuff, so we can keep that treatment process going at the early interventions, and so they can keep on track with their chemo and have a better outcome. And that helps in a lot of ways with acupuncture, and we're getting ready to do some research with that. It's really been fascinating work. We also offer social work services, and so every time a new patient comes in, they meet with a whole group of us, and social work is one of those. And social work will also sit down with them, help them understand their benefits, understand their pharmaceutical benefits. We help them get connected to all the services that they can for financial benefits for pharmaceutical, because the cost for the medication is outrageous. It's very, very expensive, and so we make sure they can afford that, and any other costs that they need for equipment at home if they need it, or transportation if they need that back and forth, any FMLA paperwork they need to be filled out, nurses and social workers, and all of them help them with that. We also do a lot of resourcing in the community with other community resources that they may need that is closer to their home, wherever they may be. We also do telehealth, so we can also reach people through telehealth, psychology. We have a psychologist on staff. I'm also a provider, so I provide psychotherapy for patients and family members. We also have genetic counseling. It's very important they get genetic counseling so we understand what different types of treatments that we're going to do with them, as well as any other family members that may be at risk for cancer in the future. We just have a lot of services that we offer our patients and their family members. We have different classes and different training classes. We partner with Gilda's Club, which we'll talk more about that as the questions go on. But we really try to, we also consult with EAP, so the Employees Assistance Program. And if they're employees, they have free counseling services, at least 5 counseling sessions for themselves and any of their family members, or couples counseling, or coaching sessions, any of those things through their Employees Assistance Program with us. And we often consult back and forth with Employees Assistance for any resources that we can to help them.
Awesome, thank you. And I want to add that, listening and hearing about all these resources, it's important to note that these resources are, St. Luke's offers a lot of resources, but I tell people, there's a lot of resources that we see here are community partners. So patients that maybe aren't treated here in the Kansas City Metro will come in for, say, a support group class, or they'll access the resources online. And what we want to know, or want to remind people is, everybody's really collaborative, and that we all, there might be there's a lot of really great resources, so I don't want people to get pigeonholed into necessarily one, but at the same time, this is part of care. So like Todd mentioned, second opinion, supportive services is another reason people make choices on the oncology space of why
Right.
they choose, because they want these types of services. So I think it's really important to note the validity of this. Acupuncture, 16 years ago when I started my career, it was like, oh no,
Right.
no. And now we're really seeing not only the importance, very patient driven by the way, because patients reported benefit, but also the efficacy and the evidence-based
Right.
importance of acupuncture and other types of complementary services. So I think it's really important to know that, and that people like Monty, you know, that's the role and a role that I play is I want my patients to get the best services. In large part, some of these services are not covered by insurance, so it is a great out-of-pocket expense. So having good understanding of benefits can help you leverage your dollars appropriately as well. So it's good to kind of know that.
We have a lot of donors who
Yeah.
donate, which is why we can do this for our yoga classes and our massage therapy and all of those things, which
Yeah.
is nice. And it's really great to see the medical community kind of partnering with these integrative services, where years ago they did not do that, so
No.
you are correct. And really the truth is it's all about the patient, folks. That's why we collaborate with other resources. It's not about territorial issues, it's all about patient care. That's right.
And I think an extension of this is to think about how some of these things can be offered in the workplace, and we think about just general well-being. So there's certainly a marriage here in that conversation.
Correct.
Thank you, Monty. Cindy, back to you, please. Were there any methods of supportive programs you used through your diagnosis while working that were especially helpful in your personal experience?
Well, I mean, I was in touch with the American Cancer Society, finding out about wigs and do-rags and things like that. No, I really, I have a very small family circle, and they were all, even including coworkers, so scared and so concerned. The only thing I really have to say about this is that it helped me find my inner strength to get through this. I happen to have gone to Sarah Canyon, and I have Dr. Talley, so he was awesome in all that process. But really, it helped me be more self-aware, self-confident, understanding everyone else's positions in my family and my coworkers, and that made me so encouraged and so strong that I was going to get through it. You know.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Information is power too.
It is.
I think if you haven't been on the American Cancer Society website, one of the favorite things that I do with people is everyone Googles. I know, I do too. And cancer is really scary, and then a lot of ad-based things come up. And one of the many things that the American Cancer Society provides, but they don't really tote, is just the solid information through their website about cancer type, understanding treatment types, and staying up to date, because working in the clinical world, things change all the time. New therapies are coming all of the time, and so it's a really great information base, and they invest a lot of hours and time in keeping that up to date, so it's on demand. So information is power when you're going through
and
this.
my current thing that I'm trying to find more information about, and American Cancer Society has some of this, and perhaps you have something to say, either one of you, is the importance of diet,
Yes.
whether you have cancer or post-cancer.
Right.
Right. So I'm trying to really focus on how can I better improve my chances in the long term
Right.
by my diet.
Lifestyle.
Yes, lifestyle.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. I do have something to say about that. But exactly, I think there's some really, yes, Google. I really tell my patients, don't Google. Stay off the computer, because it scares them to death, of course, you know, because you don't always, I don't trust Google all the time, but go to websites like the American Cancer Society, and they have, that's much better information out there. And ask your doctor where to research, but don't just Google all this information, because, and they'll tell you, they've already done it. When they come in, they've already been there and done that.
The friends have done it.
And they're already, yes, they're already scared. And they'll tell you percentages and all these things already, and it's like, please don't do that. So we tell them that. The other thing, what I think is really neat about the field, and I think it's changed in I don't know how many years it's been now, but most of them have nurse navigators. Have you heard of nurse navigators? Those are phenomenal people. And those navigators really help. Did you have a nurse navigator? Okay, well, most of them have nurse navigators now that really help kind of, you know, be with you through your whole journey. And they help guide you to HR, and they help guide you to the social services. They help guide you to SOARs. They help guide you to all the different things that you need throughout the process. So it's really been a great addition, I think, to the cancer world is nurse navigating. you've heard of nurse
Yep.
navigators,
Oh, yeah.
haven't you?
And actually, like the Association of Nurse Navigators is
Yes.
sadly only a few years old.
Yes,
You know, and so we
It's
think about
growing,
this,
yes.
and it really came from a push from patients saying, I just need somebody to walk through this with me that understands
Yeah.
when I should not freak out and when I should call. And so we've really learned in just really the consulting side, it has really lowered the burden on our, like, say, triage staff, because they
Yes.
have one person to call that knows you. So if Cindy picks up the phone, like now there's, you know, a breast nurse navigator, she could pick up the phone and say, I'm freaking out, and the nurse navigator, oh, Cindy, okay, let's figure this out. That
Right.
calms her fears and gives her good information, so she's not Googling, why is my arm red?
right.
I mean, not that you would, but, you know.
It is just a great service,
Yeah.
and I just love the name Navigator,
I
think
know.
about it.
I
They
love
help.
that.
The other aspect about the diet, we do have registered dietitians on staff as well, and they meet with them and they help them understand, because there's a lot of times where it's difficult to even eat through chemo because your taste buds change and your smells change, doesn't it? And it's real important that they keep their protein levels up and that's also why their dietitians are there to help, as well as to teach them how to eat better as they are in recovery and as they're into survivorship. We just hired a new survivorship doctor and nurse practitioner to lead that program, because there's a lot more surviving cancer, and we've got to really build that program and build it well. We also have a FAME program. How many have heard of FAME? Food is Medicine Every Day program. It's really excellent. And we have one called Cornerstones of Care, specifically for cancer patients. And someone's donated money, so it's only $5 a class for the patient and their loved one, and it's 4 classes. And it really teaches them how to eat well for cancer patients. So it's a very important.
Thank you. You want to pass it down to Todd? I definitely want to add and reiterate for those of you that are here from the workplace is you are seeing and taking care of the survivors. And I know that those are some of those questions of, now that I've gone through all of that, how do I live well? I always tell people, and when I speak, one time I got a standing ovation at a conference because I told people, I said, listen, there's 2 important things you need to know with advanced cancer. A, there's no cancer diet. There's not. And sugar doesn't cause cancer. So you can have a glass of wine. Right? There's a group of metastatic breast, so I did get a standing ovation to that one. But I think that's important to know, but then there is also important, guidance on how to navigate the survivorship side of things. And like Monty said, unfortunately, we don't have such robust programs. We are now required under credentialing, even for the organizations that we get quality standards from, to have better survivorship. So there's huge pushes to have more survivorship programs, and those will be very important in the workplace. Because knowing how to support someone who's maybe been through a lot of chemo and they're having cognitive or chemo brain, short-term memory loss, it's a real thing. We don't understand it, but it's a real thing. So it's really important to be able to navigate those resources as well. All right, thank you guys. Todd, back to you. Can you talk about some of the unique ways that Lockton employees support one another when facing something really scary like cancer?
Yeah, we have a program called Lockton Associates, Care for Lockton Associates. And it's not specific to cancer, but it includes cancer, unfortunately, quite frequently. And it really is, again, this peer-to-peer relationship. That's not something that HR came up with. HR obviously supports it.
Sure.
But yeah, it ranges everything from when we're dealing with an associate that is either has cancer themselves or a close family member, and now they're the caregiver. What can we do to support that individual? And that's unique, right? And that's what's great about this program is it's not really super structured. It's just a group of associates getting together to say, what does that person need? And then we just figure out how to make that happen. So again, sometimes it's a meal schedule. It's, hey, we want to be able to provide a certain number of meals per week. Who's going to sign up? Who's going to take care of that? We usually have one person who runs point as far as coordination of all those things. But then, yeah, everybody pitches in and does that. Not specific to cancer. I helped out recently build a ramp so that an individual could get into their home. They're going to be wheelchair bound for a few weeks. They didn't want to go through the full ADA compliance and getting their whole house renovated. They just simply need to be able to wheel in. So we took a weekend and built a ramp or a deck into somebody's home. So lots of things going on.
Do you have any advice for people wanting to start a program like that? What maybe best practice would be if they want to implement something of that nature?
Yeah, you could definitely reach out to our team. Sarah Majoska can help put that together and share some of the things that we do in that space. So, absolutely.
I love the informality of the ability to help one another and some structure around it.
Yeah.
Because I do think in large part most of us want to help, but we need to know how. Excellent, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Monty.
We have an emergency employee fund.
Mhm.
And so employees can apply for emergency funds and receipts and stuff. And then the EAP program actually runs that. And then they can be reimbursed, or they can be financially paid for bills or whatever they need to a certain amount. And that's a fund that they have through the EAP. So it's very helpful to help people because everything's very costly. So.
And in addition to Marty's comments, a lot of people share PTO hours and other things, and so having structures in place where employees can help with that. I mean, there are people that want to help and they're willing to give up a day or two to help support someone else to be off. So I think it's good to have those conversations with HR beyond just around the traditional benefits, but some of the other things from a community standpoint. Excellent. Actually, Monty, grab the microphone back, please. So I know you often provide advice to patients on approaching difficult conversations they may encounter both home and work. Can you talk about a time that you've had to facilitate conversations, provide guidance, give an example of how that went and what your advice was?
Right, that happens a lot. Because, in our work with cancer patients, and I work a lot with advanced breast cancer patients, because I work in the advanced breast cancer clinic a lot, and that's the Kuntz Center that we have there at St. Luke's, which is, I believe, the only one in the country. And we do advanced breast cancer retreats 2 times a year, and so that's on a Friday afternoon and all day Saturday and half day Sunday at a retreat center in Lawrence, and that's for couples. And we do that with the wives, the patient and the husband or partner, and then the next one might be with their support person. And we talk about those tough subjects that they don't want to talk about, which is death, dying and the dying process. Because one, they have metastatic breast cancer and they are going to die. We all are, but they are going to, because the trials are going to stop working at some point, and the cancer will mutate into another form of cancer, and that trial will no longer work. And then they'll try another trial, and then that will no longer work. And we've lost several just recently, actually, and they were at the retreat, and we are so glad that we make them talk about the pink elephant in the middle of the room, because they don't want to talk about it. And it's interesting because neither one of them want to talk about it, but they do want to talk about it. I mean, the patient really wants to talk about it, but she doesn't want to make him cry, and he doesn't want to bring it up because he didn't want to cry, and he's always trying to be positive and in denial, basically, that we're going to beat this, we're going to get this, we're going to do this, and they just don't want to talk about it. And I hear that all the time, almost every day. And, men who have maybe pancreatic cancer, and most people don't live long with pancreatic cancer. It depends on what kind they have, but the ones I see usually aren't going to live long, and the wives just don't want to hear it, or their partner just doesn't want to hear it. And they just have a hard time having that conversation, or talking about how I want to end my life, how I want those last days to be. Do I want it to be at hospice house? Do I want it to be hospice in my house? How do I want it? I had this one guy who really wanted to be in the hospice house, and the wife did not want that. She wanted him at home. Well, what does the patient want? How do I empower the patient to have that kind of conversation, to have it in his way? That's real important for him. And so I think he had it his way finally, but just the last couple days. But still, that was the way he wanted it. So it's those kind of conversations that we have to, help them facilitate to have. Or to have a couple in my office where she really feels like she's dying and he does not want to hear it. And I said, listen, you need to listen to her. I think patients know more about what's going on with it than anyone else does. And he just didn't want to have that conversation, but we finally had the conversation. And she felt much better. She's doing fine right now, but there are times when they just need to have those conversations.
There's another, in addition to this, if you don't have access to somebody, there's a great online resource called Caring Conversations that has a downloadable workbook. I believe everybody should have an advance directive in place.
Correct.
I have one. I forced my husband to have one. His says he doesn't want a funeral. He doesn't want to have an obituary in the paper because he thinks that's weird. I have no idea why. And he wants to have a party. And he had shoulder surgery a couple of years ago, and he handed the paperwork in. And he goes back, and the person from the front desk comes over to me, and she's like, Mrs. Mansfield? I said, yes. Your husband wants to have a party. I said, I know. I'm like, but it's in the paperwork. But you know, I think that actually that's really important that we define that. So I think we all should, to be honest. Unfortunately, cancer forces us in many situations to have a hard conversation, but also, if I were to die, I want him to know what my wishes are. And that's gonna make it easier for him. So we shouldn't always let a metastatic diagnosis.
No, not just metastatic,
but, you know,
right.
And I think that sometimes we should have this in place, and then if cancer does happen, it's one less thing that you're all of a sudden now freaking out about. So the caring conversations piece is really important for all of us to think about. And again, there's a great resource online. You can do it with, you know, whoever, or to have it yourself and filed somewhere. So I think that's just a good resource to know about.
And Sami, we hear that all the time, but until we get the C word diagnosis, we just don't do it.
Right.
And so every time we get the C diagnosis, we start to really think about it.
Yes.
And so you're right, all my patients, we talk about that because I know they're thinking about it, and they are, and they just don't talk about it. And so talking about it then, say, okay, let's prepare. No matter what, even if this is not a terminal diagnosis, I know you're thinking about it, so let's talk about it. And we do, and then let's prepare. Let's just have we all should be doing that, you know, because we all have an expiration date. So let's do it. And they want to be able to die well. You know, we talk about living well and all of that, which is great, we need to, but we don't talk about dying well. And I think that's another aspect of living. And so why aren't we prepared? How do we want to go? Are we making videos so our kids have those videos of us? Our grandkids have those videos? Do we have our plot picked out, our casket picked out, our wishes and made known, whatever we want done? Do we have that done? I do have a lot of couples and a lot of people going out and doing that together now, of course, because of course now it's really, really imminent, right? But why aren't we doing that anyway? Let's have those tough, difficult conversations.
And it does provide some control. And I think that that is really helpful for people.
And release. I mean, it's peace.
For sure.
It's like everything's done. I don't have to worry about it. They don't have to worry about it. Because believe me, once it's, do that for your, gift your family for that. Because it's difficult when it happens. And they don't, that's one less thing that they have to go through. They don't have to make those decisions. They don't have to pick out the dress. They don't have to pick out the suit. They don't have to pick out any of that stuff. It's all done. Wouldn't that be nice? Now come on. That's a loving thing to do.
Yeah. Thank you. Todd, back to you. We get a little technical after we talk about death and dying.
Good, yeah.
No, I know. It's a hard conversation.
But it's what I deal with every day because it's reality.
Yes, and we, you know, no one wants to face it. I mean, it's not a favorite topic of mine, but it's the reality of living here. So none of us are getting out of here alive, but we're here today, so that's what matters.
I would go as far as say it's selfish not to do those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
Right? You need to take your own personal accountability and responsibility
Yeah.
for how you live as well as how you want to die. And I think it's unfair to place that burden on other people. That's my personal approach to it.
Correct.
So
And it's
as hard
something
as that was to do myself,
Yeah.
you know, I do think that has allowed me to actually live more freely, I guess, to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But I know that if something were to happen to me on some of my crazy adventures, that all that stuff's taken care of.
Yeah.
And I bet you have some of those, don't you, Todd? Like you said, the suit
As
deceives
soon as
you. That's right.
Although I guess people that see me, Danica was like, "You're in regular clothes." I'm like, "I know, I understand, but it's more
You have to
comfortable."
dress up every once
I
in a
know, once in a while. Yes, the shoes make me a little taller, so it helps. All right, so Todd, I want to talk a little bit about HIPAA. So with HIPAA privacy rules, an employee can't ask about an employee's health without permission from that employee. How do you maneuver through this? Talk about what permission actually looks like. You know, as far as transparency, employee choice, and then also, is it best practice to not talk about colleagues' illness in the workplace? I know. Multiple questions.
Got really technical.
I didn't write this question, by the way.
No, I think it's a fair question. I think people are really concerned about it, and rightfully so. I try to encourage people to start off kind of maybe further upstream, just be approachable, right? Create an environment of a high level of trust that can provide a situation where that associate is going to feel comfortable sharing that, whatever may be going on. And then I also encourage people to get clarity on what catastrophic thing comes up to then all of a sudden be approachable, it's way too late. So I think that just how we all as professionals carry ourselves and having that empathy for our fellow colleagues and human beings and making yourself approachable every day, that you should be somebody that people feel very comfortable sharing good things with things that may be challenging, I think is really, really important. Now from a formalities perspective, it really kind of, from a human resources professional perspective, sometimes it can also depend on whether or not they are a member of the health plan or not, whether you are fully insured or self-insured, and some of those type things create some compliance nuances that a lot of times need to be taken into consideration. But what I've found is a lot of those things have a tendency to work themselves out if you're just approachable to start with, right?
Conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, if you really focus more on how that individual is feeling and not getting clinical, I mean, most people aren't really looking to share what their most recent white blood cell count is, right? They're really trying to have an understanding of how much time can I take off, what's the length of my STD, if this becomes an LTD claim. Those are some of the technical things that need to occur that I don't really think have an implication as much. Now there are sometimes when people want to share, right, clinically what's going on, but as long as again they're doing that proactively, and again it's coming from a good place, we usually don't run into any type of compliance issues.
Excellent. I think it's important to note that where the goal is to support whatever our patient goals are, and if the patient wants to work, they need to work, etc., then of course the oncology teams want to make that happen, and I know employers want to keep their employees, and provide a good workplace, as well as support their employees through a cancer experience, or it might be a family member too, and I think that's important to talk about here, is that it may not be you personally, it might be it might be one of your employees, it might be their family member, and even having those conversations, because cancer does have a very broad reach as well. Thank you for that. All right, so Cindy, one last question for you, and then we'll open it up to some audience questions. Do you have any insider advice to the coworkers of someone with cancer? As far as what to say and what not to say? I know we talked about it earlier, but maybe a couple of tidbits, anything?
Well, things to say are kind of generic, but they're true if they're sincere, which is, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Can I bring some food? Can I help with your kids? Can I, give someone who knows you is going to give specifics. The things that happened in the workplace that maybe weren't savory to me was, again, either not talking to me, or I've actually had people say, she's the one with cancer, and I was like, so I spent probably, it was 2011, I spent the first 6 years or so in denial of even being a survivor. I didn't talk about it, I didn't want anyone to know about it, other than the folks inside my head, but I switched to another job. So it's just like, that's a stigma that I don't want people to go, oh, she's cancer.
Well, it's not your identity.
No, it's not, but
that's what people,
that's
treat
how,
you.
and so that's what coworkers shouldn't do. Yeah.
Or the, how are you? And you're like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Or, okay, did anyone ever say to you, oh, you look good today?
No.
Okay, good.
Because I was bald, so I tried wigs at first,
Okay.
and then they would be like, oh.
Don't wear that one.
So then I had
Okay.
another lady at work wear the wig, and it was funny, we got a lot of pictures of her, and I went around bald. So, and I'm very outgoing, I was very open about my story, and, again, having people sign my head. I mean, I tried to change the dynamics of the people who didn't want to be around me and get them engaged.
Right.
But most coworkers have a good heart, they just don't know what to do.
Right, I think guiding them.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think like you said, it's like they don't know what to say, but you know what? Cancer doesn't change people, it amplifies who you are already. So if you're gonna be a positive dynamic person, that's gonna be who you are. If you're kind of a negative sourpuss, that's gonna be who you are. And your friends before cancer, if they can't be your friends after cancer, they probably weren't your friends. The new friends show up. And I think it's a really interesting transitional period for a lot of us. When we talk to people that go through cancer, they're like, I had these friends that were, say, from college, and they're not my friends anymore, but I found new ones. And I think there's a lot of positivity to that experience.
Well, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I'm very fortunate my husband is stuck by me. When I talk to the doctors and nurses so many times, because I was 48 when I went through it, husbands don't understand a wife without a breast. And so it ruins a lot of marriages. And it solidified mine, which I'm just so blessed that it happened that way. But it's a true story. And men can get breast cancer too.
That's right. You can die from breast
Vital
cancer.
part there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Well, that's true. We've had some men with cancer, but going back to what you said about losing friends and gaining new ones, you're right. But you know, there's such a grief and loss process already with just the diagnosis of cancer, because your life changes so much. And just breaking the illusion that you'll never get it is such a grief and loss process that then you experience losing friends or who you thought were friends and getting new friends.
Right.
And so I think it is really difficult, isn't it?
It is. I have one more quick thought.
Yes.
I'm talking to people like
So
you.
much, yeah.
You know, one of the things I always say to people, especially the ones who are standoffish about it, is you don't know who's going to get cancer. It's just like tornadoes.
Yeah.
It's not
You don't know who
discriminative,
it's going to
right.
hit. You don't know what the damage is going to be. You hope you're going to get through it, and then you come out and you look at your house and you go, okay, I move forward from here.
It's the same example I use. I tell people you might get a little warning, but not much
Not
as
much.
well. And it can hit somebody's house, like devastate a house right here, and the one next door will
Right.
be fine. Isn't that crazy?
That's the way
Yes.
cancer is too.
And cancer has no socioeconomic
Nope.
boundaries.
It's non-discriminative.
Certainly we see later diagnosis in people with other barriers, but at the same time, it doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter your influence, that you can still die from this disease. And I think it's also important, you know, and again, this is going back to people that we work with in the workplace. I was really close to a woman with pancreatic cancer. She was a 2-time pancreatic cancer survivor, and she, you know who I'm talking about Denise. So I met Denise after her first surgery, and she's like tiny, this big, after her Whipple, and helped her, which is a very big surgery, so like a very long surgery as well, and helped her recover through that from the first time, and she did great, you know, with her scans. And in 5 years, almost to the month, her cancer came back. And so it happened to be when I started this exercise program that Alex talked about earlier. So I called her and I was like, hey, you want to come work out? She's like, well, you know, I'm in chemo. I was like, come on in. She'd come in with her pump. But she had the will to live. And she did great until she didn't. And that's what happens in this experience. I mean, she beat all odds, but she's still not here. And so she died on January 31st of this last year. And yesterday, just very by surprise, her husband came popping in our gym randomly to bring me a Tupperware container that I had delivered to their house because I make chicken broth all the time, and I was kind of offloading it. And so he wanted to deliver this chicken broth to me. However, how many of you know that that's not why he was there? Right? He was there because he's trying to figure out how to still cope with the loss of his wife. And one of the things that he said to me very specifically, which I think is relevant in this conversation, is he's lost his desire and love for his work. And he's been in his work for a really long time, and so he's really struggling with that. So we talked about different ways he said, well, I can kind of retire, but I can't retire. But I'm not really helpful in my workplace. So it's also the people that are still living beyond those that have died that we're still seeing in our workforce, and we're still there's still big pieces of the cancer community. So it's just some more food for thought when you're thinking about that and having the conversations.
It scars people.
It does.
So it's a new normal for everyone, and
Yeah.
including survivors.
Absolutely.
And widowers and widows.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. So we've heard a lot today about a lot of different topics, and we kind of got a little bit off course on some things. We added a lot of other great conversation. And we've really learned about a lot of resources. We said a few times about the American Cancer Society and the amazing resources that they supply in the work that they've done for years. How many years has ACS been around? Anybody know? I was like, it's 100, yes.
106.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my gosh, wow.
So, you know, we think about, when I first started in my career, I used to think as well there's going to be some cure somewhere. And we just, you know, we're getting better at treatment, and people are living longer and with and through, but really the bottom line is we still need this support, because the cure is not anywhere around the corner. I mean, we're certainly doing better, but I want you to make sure that you're aware of all the resources that the American Cancer Society supplies. As an example, Danica, I just think this is really cool. Danica runs the Hope Lodge. Say thank you. That was a wave, thank you, good job. And the Hope Lodge is an amazing place that is like a hotel.
We use it.
Yep, we all use it, we all fight over it.
Yeah.
By the way, some days I would like to go to the Hope Lodge just myself because they have Tempur-Pedic beds in every room. They take care of patients that are in Kansas City for, perhaps they're going through like a stem cell bone marrow transplant, and they're here for weeks. Patients that travel in from rural areas to get the quality care that we have in Kansas City, and they provide a free place to stay. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal resource, and a great community for those going through it. So that's one of the main resources. There's a lot of information, other local support groups and programs, as well as transportation support, and there's some information on your table about all of those resources so that you can take that with you as well. Dealing with cancer in the workplace can present challenges for the person who is ill, as well as their colleagues and supervisors. So the tip sheets are there at your table, which are created by the ACS, and the National Business Group on Health can help support you. If you want additional information, there's a lot of ACS staff here. They're wearing their badges, so you can highlight most of them. And also just make sure that you know if this may happen in the future, that you know how to find resource. Before we wrap up, does anybody have any questions for our panelists here today?
We have about 5 minutes. We can take questions.
Question? Yes.
So, like the institute where you're at, is that tied to someone's insurance? Or how?
You mean the resources?
Right.
Can you talk about the resources?
Like, are there any things that that are free, or do they need to be on insurance and go to St. Luke's? How does that work exactly?
It's pretty much tied to St. Luke's services.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you're coming to St. Luke's, yeah.
Okay, so
Pretty
you would
much.
just choose that location, and
Yes.
if you were going through cancer, and then, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. There are other community things. We do the Women's series. It's a training or presentation series every quarter that everybody in the community is welcome to come to. We have one coming up next Thursday, I think the 13th, and that's going to be on Chinese medicine.
Oh,
And it's an evening, on Thursday evening, there at St. Luke's. You can look it up at St. Luke's website. And Chris Powell, who is one of the acupuncturists who has a PhD in Chinese medicine, he's very good, will be presenting. And so that draws a large crowd. So those kind of things are really open to the community, very much so. So is FAME. Food is Medicine Every Day is open to the community. So some of those things are definitely open.
And I wanted to just share one thing with the group, that my mother-in-law went through breast cancer, and she was able to get a grant for $12,000 from
Yes.
the Breast Cancer Foundation to pay for this medication that we
Yes,
extended.
that's what we help people do too. Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It was an incredible gift. We got an extra year.
Oh, it's
and it was just
amazing.
a relief to her, just
Yeah.
to know that it was paid for. And
Oh.
she didn't ask family help.
Absolutely, and Gilda's Club, we are a partner of Gilda's Club, and Gilda's Club, KC, is awesome. Have anybody, I'm sure you've heard of Gilda's Club? You remember Gilda Radner, a lot of people here would. Yeah, a lot of the young people I talk to, they have no idea who I'm talking to, but Saturday Night Live, you remember, she was awesome, wasn't she? Well, if you haven't been to Gilda's Club, you should go there. It's real close to St. Luke's on the plaza, but it is an awesome service, and we are in partnership with them, and they do a lot of training and presentations for the community and support groups for the community, so that's a great resource that we support and collaborate with. Yeah.
And in addition to that kind of comment about insurance, or drug coverage, there are most pharmaceutical companies that supply cancer drugs
Yes.
do have a patient assistance program.
Yes.
And so all of the hospitals have case managers, sometimes it's the navigators or the nurses that even work in the infusion room that really dig in, because when you start to see these
And
kind
the
of-
social workers.
Yes, and social workers,
Yes.
exactly. I used to call it, I say case managers, but
Right,
it's social
okay.
work. There are certainly these advocates internally, because if a patient is on these other lines of therapy and it's identified that they have a barrier, it's amazing the work that is boots on the ground that people will apply. I've seen like infusion nurses or the doctor's nurses get on and do the application for the patient because they're tired and they feel terrible, and filling out a document right now is overwhelming. So I think that that's something to know, that there's just amazing people that are probably overworked and underpaid in our cancer workforces, but they're so passionate about doing whatever they can to make sure those patients get the medicines to extend their life. So that's a great reminder. Thank you. Any other questions? Anything else to add? No. Yeah, oh, sorry. Yes, ma'am.
This has nothing to do with this, but there's somebody's parking ticket.
Oh, thank you.
So if somebody's trying to get out there.
Way to go for the support team. Excellent.
I've got a
Yes,
list
please.
right here.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Sam.
You guys kind of touched on this a little while ago, but do you have any recommendations for employees dealing with colleagues who have lost like a spouse or a parent or a loved one to cancer?
So I think that one of the things, personally, is the communication around that. And like Cindy, although she's talking about the living with, a lot of that is very relevant after. Do you need me to, I'll tell you one thing that, again, the spouse that walked into our space last night said, he's looked at me and he said, you know, all my friends are sick of going out to dinner with me. And so I tell people, like, be their friend, let them talk, do something, you know, what do they want to do that, you know, they're used to having somebody to do it with? You know, it isn't taking them a meal, because guess what, they're sitting at home eating it. It's actually, I tell people after death is the time to do. And so, as an example, you know, we happened to see this particular spouse out at a restaurant, and he was walking out when my husband and I came in, and I said, hi, where are you going? And he said, well, I'm getting my tire fixed. He said, but there's just really no place, you know, to eat for a single. I was like, well, come have breakfast with us. And he's like, well, you know, and that was an opportunity. We didn't talk much about other stuff other than just sort of randomly. There are some groups. We work with a lot of the organizations, associations, like the hospice and palliative care agencies, and they do a lot of grief and bereavement, and there are a lot of widower groups. But I think it's showing up for people, but it's not just, it's doing. Because they need do right now, because they've been doing for their person until their person died. So bringing them a casserole, not my recommendation, right, as far as.
Because meal times, I think, in evenings are really tough for
Very
people.
lonely for people.
It's very tough.
And a lot of the online stuff, even going during is a totally different environment. So that would be my advice is, and make them feel included still. You know, when there's an event, I know that, you know, for people going to a wedding single,
Right.
you know, and so making sure that they feel comfortable and making sure that they're at the right space and you're not reminding them that they've lost their spouse, they live it every day. Do you guys all know who Cheryl Sandberg is? CFO Facebook? So she talks about when her husband died, and she said that, you know, people were so afraid to mention it to me that Dave died. She goes, I knew every single day. She said, I lived it. And she said, so when they were avoiding it, she said, it wasn't that they were reminding me. You know, it was much more of an absence. So I think that that's something of a, you know, Cheryl Sandberg's lean in, and it certainly is a great opportunity to lean in for people as well, because they really do need us. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up as well. On that, we're gonna wrap up, and I know we're close to 9 o'clock, so I wanna first of all thank you all for coming out and spending some time with us. I'm sorry we didn't get to work out today. We can stick around after and do that. Darn it. But I know there's still food and coffee, so please make sure you grab something to eat and stick around if you have any questions for us individually. And anything else that,
I just have a few things.
Perfect.
So Sami mentioned you do have some collateral on your table. That first one-pager goes over all 8 of the American Cancer Society's programs and services. So those are all, there's little write-ups on each one if you're interested. You can visit our website for more information. I think I'm going to do this. This is my contact info and Cindy's contact info. Cindy's sitting right here. So I do have business cards on the table. If anyone wants further information on any of these resources or anything you heard about today, please feel free to reach out to me. I think you all should probably have my email address. And then I will be sending these electronically as well, just so you guys can have those if you want to forward them along to like your departments or coworkers, colleagues, whatever. Don't forget to please fill out the surveys that are on your table, and if you just want to go ahead and leave them at your place setting, we will come around and collect them. I want to say a quick thank you to JE Dunn for hosting us today. We really appreciate you. And thank you so much to the 4 of you. I got chills, I think, several times during this conversation. I mean, I think it was really impactful. I hope you guys are all walking away with, you know, some things you can take back to work or just take back in your personal lives, some best practices. This was a really great conversation, and you all provided great insight, so thank you so much for your time today. Thank you to everyone who came. We really appreciate it, and we hope to see you again soon.
Video, or is this going to be shared?
Yes, we are recording this. I probably could have mentioned that in the beginning, but so I don't know when we'll have that available, but we will be able to pass it out to everybody too if you want to share it with anybody. Yes.
I don't think the side got surveys.
We can get surveys.
Oh, I have them for you. Thank you for letting me know.
We love surveys.
Yeah, I'll grab some and bring them over to you. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys. I think that's everything. Have an awesome day. Make sure if you check the parking ticket.